Alright, so back with another video. This time, this is gonna be part 2 of what is consciousness and what the fuck is not. Today I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the idea of consciousness and how definitions of it and, how it can shift based on one's perception, too. So, looked up the definition. This is according to Wikipedia. Consciousness at its simplest is sentience and awareness of internal and external existence, as I told you guys before. By the way, just to preface this or whatever, this is my first time looking up this definition. I didn't look up this definition before I made my last video. The last video I made was literally my interpretation of consciousness based on my own awakening experience and based on basically my inner knowing. So one of the weird abilities I have is claircognizance, and so sometimes I just have a knowing about certain things like that based on, not only experience but also, I don't know, I didn't know that humans defined it, or some humans defined it in this way about internal and external existence, and that's basically what I described in my last video, again based on how it has appeared in my own life. And so how a human puts it into terms, that's their perspective and their perception, but the actual experience of it is what is conscious, if that makes sense. So anyway, however, its nature has led to millennia of analyses, explanations, and debates by philosophers, theologians, linguists, and scientists. Opinions differ about what exactly needs to be studied or even considered consciousness. So that's the thing, is that really consciousness is the experience itself. At the end of the day, all these definitions and all these things that people are, describing about it, that's just perception, that's their personal experience, that's perspective. But consciousness is the actual state of experiencing what they're talking about here, and it can look different for other people in some ways, or the structure of it, or how you end up getting to that point and stuff like that. So here is the article. I'll tell you who it's by. It is by this guy, Thomas Cox. Content marketer, writer, and podcast host. I'm only showing you this because it's important to know who you're getting your information from. But if it's based on it sounds like it's based on personal experience, but we'll see. The way he broke it down is really pretty beautiful. The 4 levels of consciousness and how to navigate them. In every moment, we attach our own context to the content of life. These contexts are in constant flux, and we use them to navigate the world. These contexts can be broken down to 4 levels of consciousness. To me, victim consciousness, meaning life happens to me, which means that you feel like you have no sense of control, which is coming from a place of reactivity as opposed to awakening and awareness about anyway, so by me, responsibility consciousness, so that's, well, we'll break that down in a second. Through me, surrender consciousness, which is just kind of allowing life to happen and being in the flow. And then as me, oneness consciousness. So we move through, that's what I was going to say. Let me preface this with this. So one of the things I was thinking about earlier is that, oh man, I hope I don't lose it. Okay, so that's what it was. Being able to exist in multiple, holding multiple states of consciousness. So for example, being in the state where I'm at, where I recognize that, nothing is real, nothing technically has meaning except for what we attach to it, but also being able to hold the idea of still interacting with or partaking with life in that way. So basically being able to understand and know that it's all fake, but also being able to understand and still participate to an extent as a means to create meaning in your own life. So again, being able to understand that, you know, basically life is what we make it. It's the meaning that we place on it. But also understanding that that's kind of fake, if that makes sense. I think that's just a coping skill or something that, you know, humans created, because if we didn't place meaning to things or create things like holidays or whatever, we'd kind of be sitting here like, what the fuck are we doing here? So I think that's important to note, is that, you know, some of these things were not created for no reason. And so understanding the logical functionality of it, and also the emotional functionality of it as well, but then being able to see also the other side of things, that was done on purpose, that was purposeful. And so being able to accept all of these ideas and levels of consciousness and being at peace, knowing that you can exist within all of them, if that makes sense. So to me, that's the highest level of consciousness, is when you get to that place where they're talking about here as me, oneness consciousness. So we move through these states several times through the day, often within minutes or hours. Below, which is true, because if you think about it, some of this stuff is connected to the internal versus external locus of control that I talked about before. Like, so for example, to me, life happens to me. That's having an external locus of control. It's having, which is an imbalanced ego, basically. Because it's based on your beliefs, which shapes your identity, or your so-called identity. So, to me, the state is when we're at the will and effect of life. It doesn't matter what emotion we feel, the cause of the experience is always outside of us, whether it's bad traffic or great weather. The to me state leaves us convinced that we are the victim of outside forces, and our mood is constantly dictated by life's up and downs. So basically, this is somebody who's very reactive. People who are super reactive, super angry, and live in this state of like allowing other people to control their mood or control their behavior in some way, shape, or form, or using other people or outside forces as an excuse to not take control of one's life, and things like that. That's very low vibrational, and that's, you know, not being super conscious, essentially. That's kind of like the lowest level of consciousness. This is what you see with people, again, who are very reactive. Like narcissistic people, for example. They never take accountability for anything. They always think that, oh God, it's because of somebody outside of them. Well, if you think about it, even though narcissism is a control issue, it's because they feel out of control. And that's why they are control freaks and feel the need to control the person they're with and everything around them, because they feel out of control of themselves and their circumstances. They have a completely external locus of control, and so they cope with that by trying to control everything around them, because they feel out of control, if that makes sense. Very, very low level of consciousness. By me. The by me state replaces blame with personal responsibility. It is a state of creatorship and empowerment, in which we can choose how we react to outside forces, from a world-shifting event, like a recession, to the everyday weather. When we are in by me states, we are in go mode and can choose how we create our reality. So this is more so an internal, motivated by an internal locus of control, or a balance between the two, of understanding, it's just because this is happening, or just because, for example, just because society is doing XYZ doesn't mean that I can't still live my life and do XYZ. Like, just because, for example, women, it's a lot more difficult for them to get equal rights and things like that, it's not going to stop me from going out and choosing to run for governor if I wanted to, or president, or whatever. That's because you understand that despite the external forces, nobody can stop me from, making the choices I make. Ultimately, I have control over my life and what I manifest into reality. Through me. Through me consciousness There's a misspelling, but that's okay. Means surrendering to the present moment. If in by me we play the creator, then with through me we are merely a vessel in which the universe enacts itself. There is a sense of flow and things happening naturally in the through me state. So let me just say something. The through me state is not sitting here and just waiting for something good to happen to you in your life. What they're talking about here is essentially being a channel, like basically what I'm doing right now. Like through me consciousness is kind of like the video I did the other day. That was all based on my own personal experience, and not really my personal experience, just what was coming through me in the moment. None of that was scripted. It was just a sense of flow and just yeah, as if by accident. I don't know where it came from, but also I think it's based on experience too. But this is a state of impulse or gut feeling where we play in a dynamic dance with life. So again, this is like following your intuition, essentially. As me is a spiritual experience, a blurring of the personal self and a connection with oneness. So again, that's kind of like what I was talking about yesterday, where a blurring of the personal self, understanding that ego, that identity is just a part of ego and it's not real. How we view ourselves, how we see ourselves, like, oh, I'm a sporty person, or I'm a blah, 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 blah. That's not you, though. That's not who you are. These are just things you're placing on yourself, and that's the narrative you're creating about who you think you are. But really, ultimately, you're none of those things. You never were. It's just those are things that we do to add meaning to our life. History's greatest spiritual teachers have urged that the experience of oneness, the freedom from separation, and the disillusion of an egoic self, what I was just talking about, is the greatest of human possibilities. So being able to detach again from all these meanings that have been placed onto you, understanding that I'm not a so-called whatever race you want to place on me. That's not real. I'm not a woman, if that makes sense. That's not real. That was just some label that somebody placed on me. I'm just a human being with a different makeup than other human beings. You know? So, understanding that. In this state, we cultivate a boundless love and appreciation. Yeah, because we understand that ultimately, it's like seeing the bigger picture and the macro of it, that, you know, we don't have control over it. And so, nothing is lacking. We have no nagging wants and no need to alter where and who we already are. So it's just kind of having acceptance of what is in in the moment, and really just, again, kind of what I was describing earlier, accepting, knowing all these things and being able to still have appreciation for your life, or love, or be grateful, being able to understand that, again, none of this is real. It's just what we make it. And so therefore you can make it whatever you want by just accepting where you are in the moment, and being authentically you, stripped away from the ego and all these things we place on ourselves and others. Because ultimately we're just energy. We're just energy, essentially. We're just spirits in a physical shell. So that's it for now. Yeah, that's it.